Welcome to the Access Database tutorials. Click right here on blank desktop database. If you haven't got to this screen, it's because you haven't opened it. So go to the start menu, type in Access and hit this. It's going to ask you to name your database. And for this set of tutorials, we're going to be creating like a ski hire database for a make-believe company. So instead of calling it database one, we're just going to call it Raf's Ski Hire. I just like naming it this way. It doesn't really matter if you don't do it this way, but anyway. It'll go to documents by default. If you want to change that, then hit the little folder button here and change it to somewhere else. But I'm just going to stick it in my documents for now. Hit create, and here we go. So what we need to do to start with is think about how many tables do we want. And so we're pretty much making a database for a ski hire company. So things that might need to be included are things like, are they hiring a snowboard or some skis, or are they hiring a helmet and some gloves or whatever. We're going to design the table to include all of those properties in a little bit. But firstly, how do you actually add in those properties? You will need to change between your view, because at the moment this is your view. And this is what it would look like if you're in data sheet view, which is what it'll look like when we've added some stuff. But to actually modify stuff, we need to go view and then change to design view. It'll prompt you to name your table, because you can't do anything without saving stuff in Access. Pretty much every time you want to make a change, you've got to save it. So we're going to call this one customer hire. So customer hire, because this is where we're going to fill in all the details for all our customers at our ski shop. So the correct naming convention would be to put TBL at the end, or TBL like that, just to show that it's a table, although it's going to pop up under here, under the like subheading of tables anyway, but this is like the correct way to do it. Press OK. And this is what it looks like. So this is where we specify what information we want to put into our table. Now, if we want to be correct and do it the way the study design wants us to do, the first thing we need to do is actually design what fields are going to be in our table. So a field is pretty much it's like a cell, I guess, an area where data is input. And for example, this might be the ID that each customer will have, which is unique to them, so that we can sort of distinguish them. And then we'd continue on with things like last name, first name, etc. Okay. So before we do any of this though, we should really design how our little database is going to look. So here is a data design tool. It's going to list all of the different fields that are going to be in our table. And so the first thing you're going to do is write table name, and we're going to shove in here customer hire, TBL, because that's what we're going to call it. And this is where we're going to enter all of the field names. Over here you'll have the data type, so the type of data that's going to be entered. So if this is, I'm just going to go ahead and fill in some of these, and then I'll come back to these in a moment. All right, so I've entered in all of the different field names. So we've got customer ID, which is a unique number that'll be used to identify each customer. Last name, first name, the day they're born, the month they're born, the year they're born. If they're going to choose a ski or board, the costs of the ski or board, then the cost of jacket, pants, gloves, helmet, goggles, chains, and a lift ticket. Okay, so this would pretty much be all the stuff that they probably hire. If I've forgotten something, oh well. All right, data type. So this one here is the type of data that is going to be entered into these fields. So customer ID, that's going to be an automatically generated number. So we're going to write auto number. Last name is going to be text, most likely short text, because long text is used for like comments. So short text, we're going to use short text a fair bit, so it might be worth double clicking and copying and pasting that for first name. Date of birth, this is going to be a drop down list, but it'll be short text as well. So hit short text on that and that and that and that. And now we're down here on costs. Now, if we want to have costs, we're probably going to have some kind of formula to calculate them at the end. So we need to ensure that they're numbers. So number, copy that, and we're going to paste that, number, 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 etc. Length, This is if we want to make sure that they can only type a certain number of characters. So if we want, we could say that they can only have a name that's 20 characters. Birthday, obviously they can only have 2 characters for a day because it only goes up to 31. Month, the same. Year would be 4 because I have to write in like 2005 or something like that. Ski or board. This is going to be a yes or no, so I reckon we'll go with 3 because yes is 3 and no is obviously 2. Length for costs here, you're probably going to just stick with 3 for all of these. All right, now we have properties. Customer ID properties. If we're going to shove a bunch of rules in here, what we do want to do is make a customer ID number that is randomly generated. But I like to shove like some letters and numbers in front of it, so that it looks kind of more like a customer ID instead of just like a number. So I'm going to do the greater than symbol, and then talking marks, CU00, and then close my talking marks. So what I've just done here is, well, when I put this into the validation rule, this is going to tell whatever automatic number that is generated to start with CU00 and then an automatically generated number of 1, and then the next customer will be 2, etc., etc. So then I'll have like a customer ID. All right, next we have a name. Now, if we want to make it so that the user can only enter letters, we'll use the symbol question mark. And right now that means they can only write 1 letter. We want to allow for 20, so we're just going to go. That's a fair few. Let's just count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Don't need the rest of these. Okay, now what this is going to be an input mask, because this is not a validation rule. Validation rules look a little different. So there's 2 kinds of ways we can generally limit what the user types in, validation and input mask, which we'll have a look at a little bit later. First name, we can do the same thing. Birthday, this is going to be a drop down, so we're just going to write list / drop down box, and we're going to write our own values in for that. We're going to do the same for this one, but it's going to probably be a bit hard to make a year drop down box. It's pretty big, so we might just go with a validation rule that only allows them to type between 2 different years. So here's one I prepared earlier. And by the way, there'll be a list of all the validation rules and things that you can use and take into your SAC so that you don't have to remember everything. So birth year, we're going to only allow them to be born between 1900, you'd have to be pretty old, 115 or whatever, and 2010, or maybe 12, get some pretty young skiers. So this rule says you have to enter a value that is greater than or equal to 1900, and the other parameter is 2012 and below. Okay, so obviously that sort of fits our birth year. Ski or board, that's going to be a drop-down list as well, just selecting between the 2. Cost, this is going to be a number, and depending on how much we think these things are worth, like how much it's going to cost to hire, will depend on the number that we make. So we'll highlight this one that we've made previously, which is less than or equal to 2012. So we'll paste that down here and change that to less than or equal to the maximum value of our hire cost. So I reckon the ski or board, let's go with $75. So they can pay less than or up to $75. The reason why I've done less than is because what we're going to do with our database is have the ability for the salesperson to give them discounts, and maybe make the price a bit cheaper for them. So we'll have a maximum price and then we'll allow them to type in slightly lower. Jacket, paste that rule, that validation rule again, and we're going to make the jackets worth, I don't know,
35. Pants, they can be worth 35 too. And the gloves, let's make them worth 20. So I'm just using Control V here because I've obviously copied this with Control C. Helmet, we'll make that $20 as well. Goggles, they're pretty expensive, so let's make them $30. Chains, let's go 15. And we got a lift ticket there, or is it absolute rip? Let's go with 125.
And there we go. So now we've designed what we want our tables data to look like, the data types, how much data length we want, and also any properties that we have. So now that we've created this, we would probably save it, file save as, and then we could use this to create our databases.